Hi, my name is Ayla, and this is my audition submission for Good Trouble with my monologue that I've written that I will be reading for you. And yeah, so here we go. When I was 4 years old, the only knowledge I had about the female experience came from the Bible. I knew that the angel Gabriel came down from heaven and told Mary that she was going to have a baby, and she did. I also knew that my mom had recently given birth to my brother, and when I asked about where babies came from, she told me that God made every child. So I put two and two together. I reached and maintained for several years the conclusion that whenever God felt like it, he sent someone down from heaven to tell a woman that she was going to have a baby. The baby vessel had no real say in the matter. I also reached the conclusion that upon observing my mother's stomach grow as my brother developed, the baby must grow in the stomach. And like all other things that form in the stomach, it must be pooped out. So when I was 4 years old, I was terrified of going to the bathroom because what if God decided I was pregnant but forgot to send someone down to tell me and I was about to shit out a human being right here in my bathroom? Apparently that's not how it works. It's worse. When I was 8 or 9, my mom bought me a copy of the Body Book for Girls after I began puberty at the ripe old age of 7. This book was the Bible for any and all adolescent girls who were beginning the process of growing into a woman, myself included. But my mom told me not to look in the back of the book yet because she didn't want it to scare me. I looked in the back of the book. I learned what a period was. I got scared. Sorry, Mom. When I was 11, I was still the only one of my friends who had had their first period, so I was the one they went to try and figure out what it was like to have one before they experienced it for themselves. One asked me, "Is it scary?" I responded, "Nah, not really. It's only scary when the cramps get so bad that I collapse on my bedroom floor and can't move for 10 minutes. Okay, obviously this wasn't the right thing to say, but in my defense, I had no idea that this wasn't normal. I wouldn't know, in fact, until I was about 16, because talking about female health is so societally taboo. When I was 12, a boy in my 6th grade class started to make fun of me. It wasn't anything serious at first, but as the year went on, it got worse. He got all of the boys in my class to gang up on me and made fun of my big nose and my bad acne and my deep voice. It was superficial, but it got to me. I complained about it to my family, and every single adult told me he was making fun of me because he liked me. What kind of fucked up logic is that? Why would you tell an impressionable 12-year-old girl that? Society tells girls that boys hurting them mentally or even physically is a sign of affection, and then they wonder why so many women stay in abusive relationships. But here's the thing, it's not true. And I learned that the hard way. That boy didn't like me. He hated me. But because I was told the opposite, I tried everything to get his attention, to get him to keep making fun of me. Well, it worked. He kept making fun of me. And I became more and more insecure, but hid it underneath a superficial shell of attention-seeking. To this day, I'm still insecure about my nose. When I was 12, I was catcalled for the first time by a truck full of men who drove past me as I went for a walk outside of my neighborhood. They were yelling and wolf whistling, though it is hard for me to recall their voices now. I knew what they were doing because I had seen it in the movies, but I didn't know why. My face was so gross and sweaty that day, my hair was pulled back into a day-old ponytail. It wasn't until later in life that I realized it wasn't my face they were whistling at. I was 12 years old when the men of my town decided that my body was no longer my own. When I was 13, I was followed to school by two older boys who had been drinking in the graveyard that I cut through each morning. I walked faster, but didn't run because I knew that I could not run fast. They would catch me in seconds. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. I doubted myself, as I often did. Maybe they're just going in the same direction as me. But they followed me all the way to the bus loop of my middle school, and when I told someone in my French class about it, she told me that she had seen two boys at the entrance to the school pointing at the door I had gone through. I got a ride home that day and never cut through the cemetery again. When I was 13, I was in gym class on an exercise bike in the school's fitness center, when all of a sudden my foot slipped off the pedal and I fell. The thin end of the seat went straight between my legs and it hurt like a bitch! I remember wanting to scream in pain, but resisting the urge because my school had conditioned me to believe that I should be neither seen nor heard. So instead, I held my crotch in pain while my friends next to me laughed. If I ever had an intact hymen, it definitely broke that day. Of course, our society has deemed that virginity is definitely a real physical thing that has everything to do with that little piece of skin that not every girl even has. So, I guess you could say that when I was 13, I lost my virginity to a bike seat. When I was 13, I went to the library after school every day with my friends to work on homework. On one of these afternoons, 3 boys from school called me over to talk to them in the kids section. When I got there, one of them asked me if I would give his friend next to him a lap dance. I said no. He asked if I would give him a lap dance. I said fuck off. As I walked away, I could hear one of them say to the others, "Whatever, she's fucking ugly anyway." Yeah, okay. I went outside so that I could tell my friends what happened, and as we stood in front of the giant window, one of the boys pretended to rail me from the other side of the glass. I was encouraged to report this. I told my dad when I went home, and I let him report it to the school. This should have been a smart move on my part. My school should have taken it seriously. But they didn't. You know the phrase, snitches get stitches? Yeah. When I was 13, half of my class hated me, talked shit about me, ostracized me, waited for me at my locker for 3 days, and told the male vice principal that I was a liar. I'm pretty sure he believed them because they were never called down to the office to discuss it. But I was. I was called into the guidance counselor's office where she had me recount the whole thing in detail, only for her to ask me, "Have you ever considered that maybe he just likes you?" I knew by now he didn't, but the look she gave me told me that this conversation was over. So I bowed my head and I said, "I guess." She said with a smile, "Boys will be boys." Is that how boys are? When I was 13, and when I was 14, and when I was 15, I was harassed and stalked by a group of boys in my class because they knew, I knew, the school would do nothing about it. They would say hi to me in between classes and would laugh at me with their friends no matter which way I responded. They grabbed me in the hallways, shouted at me while I was in class, screamed in my ear while I was at my locker, whistled and gestured at me from the bus as I walked home, made moaning noises at me whenever I was near them, told me just how good at sex they were and that they could show me a good time, tried to touch me during assemblies, posted about me on their Facebooks and Instagrams, and laughed whenever I asked them to stop, laughed whenever I went along with it to protect myself. They took turns being the main attacker. My teachers thought it was funny. One boy in particular pretended to have a crush on me. He asked me out multiple times. I said no each time because I knew he was kidding, but society's little voice in my head whispered, what if he wasn't? They fucked with my head so badly that I could no longer tell the difference between lies and reality. I could no longer tell if they were being mean to me or if I was in fact the bitch. That's what everyone called me, either way. Rejecting my tormentors made me a bitch. They didn't stop until my freshman year of high school. When I was 14, after school had ended one day, those boys gathered all of their friends and cornered me in the hallway by the door so I couldn't leave until I gave them my phone number. Sure, I could have tried to just push through them, but that would have just given them another excuse to touch me, wouldn't it? I just wanted to go, I just wanted them to stop, so I caved. I left for the library afterwards and cried to 2 friends who had never seen me cry before. Those boys called me almost every day after that. In school, on the bus during field trips, as I walked to school, even during the summer when I was at home. I was convinced they knew where I lived. I can still hear them laughing through the phone no matter how I answered their questions. They tried to get me to meet up with them. I don't like to think about what they might have done if I had said yes. I don't know why I ever even answered their calls. You're probably asking, why didn't I just block them? Why didn't I tell anybody? Well, I didn't want it to become any worse than it already was. Wouldn't you hide it too, if it seemed like the whole school was on their side? Wouldn't you hide it too, if you were the one that was punished for trying to get help? I became ashamed of my belief in the good of boys and men. I became paranoid. I really did become a bitch. To this day, a man my age that I am unfamiliar with saying hello to me as I walk to class is automatically perceived as a red flag. I will never forgive those boys for what they did to me, to my self-esteem, for the psychological damage they caused that no therapy could ever completely fix. And, more importantly, I will never forgive the teachers and staff who watched and let it happen. When I was 14, I was told, to put it simply, that I couldn't possibly be a girl. My voice was still deeper than all of the boys in my class. The peach fuzz above my lip was dark like a mustache. My chest was too flat. Listen, times have changed. My nose was too big, my legs were hairy, anything they could think of to make me seem less womanly. Less human, even. I guess they were right, because every time I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a girl. I saw a monster. When I was 15, I was dress-coded so many times that I lost count, all because my shorts showed that I did, in fact, have legs that went above my kneecaps. In my homeroom teacher's eyes, that meant that I was a harlot, a whore, a teenage prostitute, if you would, and should be scolded for it in front of the class. She measured the length of my shorts regularly. I was even sent to the office once, where my mom ripped the staff a new one. Fuck the dollar bill rule. When I was 16, my friend and I were followed on the beach by a man we didn't know. We tried to hide from him among the big rocks and in the water, but he always caught up to us. We laughed it off between the two of us, but really, we were scared. At least I was. He followed us all afternoon until he finally found us sitting in our beach chairs. He talked up a storm to us, hit on my friend, and left. We considered ourselves lucky that he only talked to us after following us silently for 2 hours. Later that summer, he recognized me at the same beach while I was with a different friend and followed us again. We left. I never told my parents about that day. When I was 16, my dad simply could not understand why I was so scared to walk home alone at night after school football games. When I was 16, I was in class on 2 Sunday nights, preparing to be confirmed as an adult in the eyes of the Catholic Church. For an hour each of those nights, we were shown pictures of unborn fetuses and told that abortion was unacceptable no matter what, even in rape, even if the woman would die, even if the woman and the child would die. They told us the abortion crisis was worse than the Holocaust. When I was 16, my mom and I realized that, wow, my uterus really does hate me. My periods were getting heavier, longer. My longest one was a record of 15 days straight, more irregular, more painful each month, to the point where I could not function in school. My lower spine felt like someone had tied a 10-pound weight to it and left it dangling. I started taking medication. I had to. I thought of those crazy anti-abortionists, how they said birth control was a mortal sin, and I downed my first pill with a whole glass of water. They must have forgotten that God loves and forgives us all, and that a young girl who just wanted her pain to end wasn't an exception. When I was 17, I joined Tinder after my first breakup. Yeah, I know, it was dumb, an old friend already lectured me about it. Don't worry. I just wanted to feel loved, liked, appreciated. I was delusional and sad and needed external validation. And I got it. Then a boy on there told me he wanted to rape me. I had thought we were friends. I deleted my account. When I was 17, I started receiving dick pics and nude requests, completely unsolicited ones from men and boys that I didn't know, on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. The first time I saw one, I wanted to throw up, but now I've seen so many I didn't ask for, I've become immune. I guess it's a superpower. When I was 18, I was with my dad in an Applebee's, and a middle-aged man next to me ogled at me, his eyes going up and down my body. In an Applebee's. In front of my 6'3", rugby-playing, military college alumni dad. Really? When I was 18, my high school drama club put on a production of Midsummer Night's Dream. Our director, during one rehearsal, instructed my friend who acted beside me, who had been my friend since we were 9, to put his face in my crotch. He thought it would be funny. We didn't think it was funny. We refused. His half-assed apology only came after our friends reported him to the principal, and it was absolute bullshit because this was not the first time he had done something like that to me and gotten away with it. When I was 18, I woke up to the news that our country had elected a man as president who openly boasted about sexually assaulting women. There was an anger inside of me that hadn't surfaced for a long, long time, an anger that stemmed from an instinctual fear that I had developed simply because I was a woman. When I was 18, the Me Too movement gained speed, and I learned just how many of my friends, my loved ones, had been raped, assaulted, and harassed. I wasn't alone. But that fact certainly didn't make me feel any better. When I was 19, I learned that being a woman in college meant locking your dorm door at night and walking alone with a jackknife in my pocket because weird old men would honk at me and a group of Mainer rednecks would drive past in their white pickup truck, screaming about how they were going to fuck me in the ass. There are so many other stories like that, like the sleazy dude in the music shop who told me to smile for him, or the oral surgeon who wouldn't stop calling me a good girl during my consultation like I was a dog. But I'm too tired and too angry to recount them all. When I was 20, I came out as bisexual. I probably should have been more clear in my coming out to my family because my brother thought I was a lesbian for a year after that, but I digress. It took me so long to officially come out because I was, for some stupid reason, afraid that if I announced to the world that I was gay, people would see me differently. People might not want to be with me romantically. I guess it stemmed from the inherent biphobia in our society, especially towards women, because we are seen as greedy or more likely to cheat if we are attracted to more than one gender. I knew I would be fetishized too, which was a correct assumption to make because I cannot count on one hand the amount of men that have asked me for a threesome once they find out that I also like women. When I was 20, I tried having sex with my then boyfriend. He was insecure, which was fine. I wasn't one to judge. I was nervous too because sex hadn't really worked for me in the past. He knew this. It was expected. But when it once again didn't work, he got insecure and upset. He threw himself a pity party in my bed at 10 o'clock at night, and I was the one who had to comfort him because of something my body was doing. I wasn't really allowed to process my feelings over it because he was upset. After that night, he refused to try again. He refused to be intimate with me. He would barely even kiss me. I felt so undesirable. I felt broken, like my body didn't work properly, and because of that, he was shunning me. I stayed single for a long time after that. When I was 20, I learned that my mom had been groped when she was a young girl. She never told anyone about it because she thought that no one would care, because something like this was completely normal. When I was 20, I learned that my college's coward of a former president overturned a rape case in which the rapist was already convicted. He got to stay on campus. She was told to go to alcohol counseling, and the president fled to another school. There are still convicted rapists on Farmington's campus. Either that or they graduated already. But regardless, they were allowed to stay. That same week, I sat in a room with students and staff alike as the Title IX coordinator basically told us that the school cared more about protecting convicted rapists than it did about protecting innocent students. When I was 21, multiple states presented their own abortion bans, limiting or essentially eliminating altogether a woman's ability to choose for her body and her potential child. Even though I live in one of the most liberal states in the country, I was terrified. I had always known that I did not want nor should realistically have children of my own, but now this very idea was threatened not only for me but for every woman who lives in the United States. When I was 21, I quit my summer job mid-season because my boss refused to treat me the same way he treated my male coworkers. He would not give me the same amount of hours as them, even though we were all working the same job. He gave me no training. He did not give me the same raise he gave others who had been there for a year as I had. He wouldn't even give me the required shirt I was supposed to wear, claiming they had run out, and then giving one to my male coworker next to me. I had to steal one from the office. He mansplained to me how to sweep mulch off of the pathway around the venue. Hell, he wouldn't even rehire me in the same way that he rehired everyone else. I had to reapply for the job and fill out an application form after months of being ghosted by my own boss, while everyone else had to just reply yes to his text asking if they were coming back. It was my first experience in workplace sexism. What a milestone. When I was 21, my mom and I bought matching hot pink pepper spray consoles to keep on our presence at all times. She called us armed and fabulous. When I was 21, after some extensive research on a hunch, I discovered that I have vaginismus, a condition that can cause pain during sex and involuntary contraction of vaginal muscles during initial penetration. It can be caused by a physical abnormality, which my doctor had confirmed I did not have. It can also be caused by anxiety and a psychological resistance to sex. In other words, my vagina gets anxious. Gee, I wonder why. This November, at the age of 22, I will have to choose which senile, old, racist, pedophilic, rapist white man I want as President of the United States. Last time there was just one. Now there's two of them. Fuck it, at least the blue one believes climate change is real and has a qualified woman as his vice president that doesn't hate gay people. Your move, America. Decide my future for me. I'm sick of this shit. Scene.